We lived together for 6 years since the dawn of our relationship, got our apartment within the first year, and first separated 4 or so months ago. I moved closer to my school while she had to stay because she started a new job to see if we could work on ourselves separately. We found that we had gotten complacent in our own ways. We were making progress, slowly, but we enjoyed each other's company a lot more. While still seeing each other every weekend, Saturday, December 16th, last weekend, her best friend was over and decided to demeaningly talk me down on how I'll never change and how I'm not getting any help, therapy, medical, physical. She also claimed that most of the problems in my relationship were my fault. This rant lasted over an hour. I stood in silence and acknowledged the conversation while reiterating, when I could, how I have been working on making changes. I have been doing part-time work, 6 hours while going to school, 5 hours, and finding an apartment, which I got offered on Monday. I have also been commuting 3.5 hours, 150 miles a day. I know I have flaws, and it is the reason I decided that we should separate and work on ourselves, because I was unhappy with the person I was becoming. I wanted to work on that to be the best version of myself for her. She had this conversation with my spouse there in front of us, and she never defended me. It made me feel extremely disappointed. Personally, I felt disrespected, as this isn't her spouse's best friend relationship to be talking the way she did, and stepped way out of line. She left after a few hours, and then I left shortly, saying goodbye to my spouse before walking away. My girlfriend apologized on her behalf the next day and said that she was out of line, but the fact she didn't stand up for me while it was happening hurt more than the words her friend said to me. I told her that it would be better if we went our separate ways, because the way she didn't say anything while it happened was proof that I have, in fact, not changed. The friend also texted asking to meet up for her to apologize, but then I blocked them both. She called me 10 minutes ago from her brother's phone number and left a voicemail on how she really wants to apologize for not sticking up for me, and if we could talk about the situation that unfolded. Am I the jerk? I really thought I'd live my whole life with this person, and I'm not sure why I reacted the way I did. Update. Spouse and I will be having a conversation on what unfolded that Saturday evening this upcoming Friday. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. I feel what you're feeling. I learned that the love of my life, someone I've never said a word against in the years I've loved them, had been complaining extensively about me to her friends, all while pretending to talk problems out and resolve it with me. I didn't know just how much she'd come to resent me and told everyone about it. But me, venting to friends about relationship issues is normal. But blasting their every flaw and then taking a back seat while a third party acts as a spokesperson is not supporting your personal growth. And it's hard to grow when you're surrounded by people who don't think you're capable of it. Comment 2. Her best friend had no business sticking her nose in your relationship. Your ex-girlfriend was probably venting to her about you, and the best friend took it upon herself to teach you a lesson. The fact that your girlfriend stood there for an hour and allowed it to happen shows you that she doesn't have your back. Her best friend is a bully, and your girlfriend enabled her. Your girlfriend spoke about you to an outsider and then didn't stop the verbal abuse. I wouldn't feel safe with that person anymore. I don't know if there is going back once the trust is broken, but if you want to work on it, you will need couples therapy and placing firm boundaries, especially with the best friend. Not the idiot. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support on my last post. It's been a wild week and I've got quite the update for you all. So, after the whole incident with my spouse's best friend tearing into me, things took an unexpected turn. My spouse and I had that conversation we planned for Friday, and let me tell you, it was intense. We met at our usual spot, the little coffee shop where we had our first date. The air was thick with tension as we sat down, both of us knowing this talk could make or break us. She started off by apologizing for not defending me when her friend went off. She admitted she was shocked and didn't know how to react. I could see the regret in her eyes, and it was clear she'd been doing some serious thinking. She explained that she'd been reflecting on our relationship and realized that she had been taking me for granted. She missed the little things, like how I'd always make sure to leave the last slice of pizza for her, or how I'd send her good morning texts every day before we separated. I listened, feeling a mix of emotions. I was still hurt, but I also remembered all the good times we'd shared. Like the time we got lost on a road trip and ended up discovering a beautiful hidden lake, or how we'd spend lazy Sundays just binge-watching our favorite shows. We had built a life together, and it wasn't easy to just walk away from that. Then came the jaw-dropping moment. She pulled out a small notebook from her bag, the one she used to jot down her thoughts and poems. She had written a letter to me, pouring out her feelings and promising to fight for us. She read it out loud, and her voice cracked with emotion. It was raw and honest, and it hit me hard. We talked for hours, laying everything on the table. We discussed our issues, our dreams, and what we both needed to work on. It was like peeling back layers, getting to the core of our problems. We both had been so focused on our own growth that we'd neglected to grow together. I brought up the time when I had to deal with my family's financial crisis, and she was there for me every step of the way. It reminded me that she wasn't just my spouse, she was my partner in every sense of the word. And I realized that I still wanted her to be that person for me. We decided to give it another shot, but with a new set of rules. We agreed to communicate more openly and to never let an outsider influence our relationship again. We also decided to start couples therapy to work through our issues with a professional. As for her friend, well, she reached out to me again, this time through a mutual friend. She was persistent, I'll give her that. She wanted to clear the air and apologize for overstepping her boundaries. I was hesitant, but my spouse encouraged me to hear her out, so I agreed to meet her. We met at a park, a neutral ground. She was visibly nervous, and I could tell she was genuinely sorry. She explained that she was only trying to look out for my spouse, but realized she had gone about it the wrong way. She promised to stay out of our relationship and to respect our boundaries. I accepted her apology, not for her sake, but for my own peace of mind. It's been a week since that conversation, and things have been better. My spouse and I are taking it one day at a time, relearning how to be with each other. We've had our ups and downs, but we're both committed to making this work. I've been keeping busy with school and work, and I finally moved into my new apartment. It's a small step, but it's a fresh start. My spouse has been supportive, helping me unpack and set things up. It's nice to have her around, and it feels like we're building something new together. We're planning to have a quiet weekend, just the two of us, to reconnect and enjoy each other's company. It's been a long time since we've done that, and I'm looking forward to it. My husband laughed when I skipped the party after Grandpa's funeral. I've been feeling invisible, but his toxic text to another woman just blew up in his face. Myself, 39 years old, and my husband, 40 years old, have already been having problems in our marriage as it is. I try to talk to him, and he ignores everything I tell him. It's little things that have built up, like his family treating me poorly and him allowing it, him never defending me when someone is saying things about me that are blatantly wrong, especially other females. Both of my parents had cancer at the same time a few years ago, and when I found a lump in my breast and when I was crying while trying to tell him, he fired up his Xbox, put on his headset, and got into a party with friends. So I started making friends and going to concerts to get my mind off of all this stuff. I started to finally have some sort of support system. I guess that made him mad, because I recently found out he met a girl at a concert, and within a week, he started bad-mouthing me behind my back to her. They both called me being depressed and suicidal during my cancer scare, and my mother's cancer situation, me just being a drama queen and wanting a pity party. He was absolutely vile in the things he said to her about me. When I confronted him just 3 weeks ago and called her out, he immediately came to her defense, which is something he's never done for me in our 18 years of marriage. This all happened that same day my grandpa was rushed to the hospital, and it was also the anniversary of my other grandpa's passing, which still hits me hard. Fast forward to the last few days. I just lost my grandpa, and we just had the funeral 2 days ago. I'm still grieving as I was very close to my grandpa. He went and was somewhat supportive. More to our 2 kids. However, he told me that since he went to the funeral, I now had to go to his nephew's birthday party later that night. So I was forced to attend a party after a funeral in a house where I'm not liked to begin with. I'm not doing well mentally or emotionally at the moment with everything. Today, he leaves work early to come home and try to have intimacy with me. That's it. That's why he came home early. He got home, got a shower, and immediately came downstairs naked and just stood there. Made no attempt to even, try to get me in the mood or be romantic or anything. So I told him I wasn't really in the mood. Reasonably so, I would have assumed. And he got mad. Told me it's been a while, which it has, but I have had no desire to have intimacy with him after all he's done lately. He stormed upstairs, angry that I didn't see him standing there, and immediately dropped to my knees, had no understanding that the funeral of my grandpa is still fresh from 2 days ago, and to boot, I have to go collect the flower arrangements from their house that my grandma wanted me to have later today. Am I the idiot here for not being in the mood to have intimacy after what I've been going through lately? I literally got sick to my stomach and my chest felt like it was tightening when he came down expecting intimacy. In the past, I've given in when I wasn't in the mood just because I felt like I wasn't allowed to tell him no. Maybe I should have given in again, even though I didn't want to. I feel like this is another thing he's going to go tell his new friend about to paint me as a horrible person rather than try to understand what's wrong here and make an attempt to fix it. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Divorce him. He's a piece of shoot who only cares about himself. The fact that he defended some woman he doesn't even know and could never defend you against his family says a lot. If the house is in your name, tell him to pack his things and get out. You deserve so much better than that. Comment 2. Not the idiot. I stopped reading after he was a jerk firing up his Xbox when you found a lump in your breast. Why are you with someone who treats you this badly? Good Lord, grow a spine and get out of this relationship. Now for the update. Hey Reddit, it's been 2 weeks since I last posted about my husband and the mess we're in. I wish I could say things have improved, but buckle up because it's been a wild ride. After the incident where he came home early expecting intimacy, things got even more tense. I've been trying to process my grandpa's passing and the whole situation with my husband's insensitivity. I thought maybe, just maybe, he'd see how his actions were affecting me, but nope. So the day after he stormed upstairs, I went to collect the flower arrangements from my grandpa's funeral. It was a somber task and I was already feeling low. When I got back, I found my husband on the phone, laughing and chatting. I didn't need to guess who it was. His tone said it all. It was her, the girl from the concert. I felt my heart sink. I couldn't believe he was doing this, especially after everything that had happened. I confronted him again, and this time, he didn't even try to hide it. He told me that he felt neglected and that I was always too busy dealing with my family issues. I reminded him of the time when both my parents were battling cancer and how he couldn't even be bothered to support me then. He just shrugged it off, saying that was in the past and I needed to get over it. But here's the twist, Reddit. I found out that the girl he's been talking to is actually someone from his past, and they dated briefly in college before I met him. I couldn't believe it. It's like he's living in some fantasy world where he's trying to recapture his youth or something. I've been reflecting on our 18 years of marriage, and I remember how he never stood up for me against his family. They've always treated me poorly, and he's never once defended me. It's like a pattern with him, always taking the side of others over me. Just last week, we had another blow-up. He had the nerve to complain that I wasn't being a good wife because I wasn't fulfilling his needs. I reminded him of all the times I'd been there for him, like when he lost his job a few years back, and I worked extra hours to make sure we stayed afloat. He had conveniently forgotten all about that. And then, 2 days ago, something happened that I still can't wrap my head around. I was going through some old boxes in the attic, trying to find some comfort in memories, when I stumbled upon a stack of letters. They were from him to her, dated back to their college days. It was like a punch to the gut. He had kept them all these years, hidden away. I confronted him with the letters, and he couldn't even look me in the eye. He mumbled something about them being old memories and that they didn't mean anything. But how can they not mean anything if he's been talking to her again? Our kids have been picking up on the tension too. They're old enough to understand that something's not right, and it breaks my heart. I've always tried to shield them from our problems, but it's getting harder to do. Yesterday, he told me he was going out with some friends from work. I had a hunch and followed him. He met up with her. They didn't see me, but I saw them laughing and touching like we used to. I felt sick to my stomach. I haven't decided what to do yet, Reddit. I'm still grieving my grandpa, and now I have to deal with this betrayal. I feel like I'm at a breaking point. I've been the one trying to hold everything together, but I'm not sure how much longer I can do it. My sister begged to bring our toxic grandmother over, but I shut it down fast. My wife agreed. Our home isn't a place for old ghosts. My sister tried playing the victim, but we weren't falling for it. And then my mother showed up alone. So I, 24-year-old male, recently told my family, "No, the buck she's not," when they prompted the idea of my grandmother coming to stay with my family. For context, I am married to my wife, 31-year-old female, and have 2 children, 6-year-old male, 2-year-old female, and we currently live out of state from my family due to my occupation. My wife is a stay-at-home mom. I was told recently that due to work, I will be leaving for a few months in spring of next year and won't be back until 2024. While I'm gone, my mother, 46-year-old female, has offered to come live with my wife to help take care of the kids. She currently lives with my sister, 28-year-old female, since my dad passed away, and up until about yesterday, that was the plan. However, recently my grandmother, 63-year-old female, has also started living with them. And while on the phone with my family yesterday, the idea of my grandmother also coming with my mom was prompted, to which I had my response. Now, my grandmother and I have a very estranged relationship, to say the least. To put it simply, for a part of my life, I lived with my grandmother and Tia for a few years, and they are the source of a lot of trauma for me. They emotionally, physically, and mentally abused me for all those years of my childhood. They also abused my sister and brother, 20-year-old male as well. So my resentment towards her has never really healed. My sister allowed my grandmother to live with her because my tios and tias, mother siblings, no longer want her living with them for how she treats them and their kids. My sister's rules for living with her are: 1, she never gets to be alone with the kids. 2, if she even yells at one of the kids, she's out. And 3, she will never raise a hand to the kids. But when my mom comes to stay with my family while I'm gone, my sister doesn't want my grandmother there and said she will come with my mom. Now, my wife is totally on my side of this, as I've told her all my traumas and feelings and doesn't even want my grandmother around our kids. If she wasn't living with my mom and sister, we'd be no contact. My sister is saying it's not fair that she'd have to put up with my Nana while my mom is here with my family, and that I need to get over it because she was abused too, and she forgave her, but I refuse to even let my Nana visit. My brother is staying out of it because he is also estranged from my grandmother, and my mother knows that I am serious about not letting my grandmother come. But my sister is the most adamant that my grandmother needs to come. So it's fair. So am I the jerk for saying no, the buck she's not, when prompted that my Nana could come stay with my family? Edit. So just some clarification. My mom is coming to help my wife. That is the plan currently, and it was only a stated idea of my grandmother coming as well. My mother and grandma coming is not a package deal. It was only a suggested idea that I very firmly and promptly refused. Also, my son is technically my stepson. My wife and I met when I was 21, almost 22, so I've been the only father figure in his life, and by all means, he is my son. 2. OMG, huge typo causing confusion in the paragraph about my brother staying out of it. It's supposed to say, and my mother knows, not brother. Update. Holy cow, this got more responses than I expected. but I did read every comment and thank you all. My family will be going back home to see my mom and siblings for Christmas. So if anything happens, then I'll update. But thanks for the advice, everyone. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. It's not up to you to make it fair for your sister. She's free to give Graham the boot and set hard boundaries in her life, the same way you have. You tolerate your grandmother for your sister's sake. If no one wants to be around her, no one has to be around her. Plain and simple. No one is responsible for housing an hurtful individual. Not the idiot. Comment 2. Not the idiot. You have to have boundaries. If a family member is causing issues or even a source of earlier pain, in no way would I have the person stay with me or my family. I understand forgiving someone, but I would not open my home to cause more issues in the future if she hasn't changed. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a week since my last post, and boy do I have an update for you. First off, let me remind you that my mom was supposed to come stay with my wife and kids while I'm away for work. That was the plan, and we were all set on that. But then, the whole situation with my grandmother wanting to tag along threw a wrench in the works. Now, remember how I mentioned my sister was insistent that my grandmother should come too to make it fair? Well, she's been pushing that agenda hard. She's been calling me almost every day trying to guilt-trip me into changing my mind. She keeps bringing up how she managed to forgive our grandmother and that I should do the same for the sake of family unity. But here's the new development. My wife, who's been my rock through all of this, had a confrontation with my sister. My wife, bless her, stood her ground and told my sister that our children's safety and emotional well-being are our top priority. She even brought up how my grandmother's presence in our home could undo the years of therapy I went through to deal with my past trauma. Now, my sister didn't take this well. She accused my wife of being controlling and trying to isolate me from my family. It got pretty heated, and my wife ended up hanging up on her. I've never seen her so upset, and it just reaffirmed my decision to keep my grandmother away from my family. But wait, there's more. My mother, who's been caught in the middle of all this, decided to have a heart-to-heart with me. She admitted that she understood my concerns and promised that she would come alone. She also confessed that she's been feeling overwhelmed by the tension between my sister and me, and that she's been considering moving out on her own to avoid being in the crossfire. This was a huge moment for my mom and me. We've had our differences in the past, especially after my dad passed away and she moved in with my sister. But this conversation brought us closer, and I could tell she was genuinely trying to support me. Now, for the jaw-dropping moment you've all been waiting for. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more complicated, my brother, who's been staying out of the drama, accidentally let slip that my grandmother had been snooping around my sister's house looking for evidence that my wife and I were unfit parents. She was planning to use whatever she found to force her way into staying with us. I was floored. The idea that my grandmother would go to such lengths to manipulate the situation was beyond anything I could have imagined. It was a betrayal that cut deep, and it only solidified my resolve. So with all this chaos, you'd think that would be the end of it, right? Wrong. Here's where the misunderstanding comes in. My sister called me yesterday, fuming, saying she heard from my brother that I was planning to cut all ties with my family once I moved for work. I was confused because that was never my intention. After a long and tense conversation, we realized that my brother had misunderstood a comment I made about wanting to distance myself from my grandmother, not the entire family. It took some time, but I managed to explain the mix-up to my sister. She calmed down, and we ended the call on a somewhat better note, though the air was still thick with tension. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.